Welcome to our presentation on Do Societal Norms Contribute to the Lack of Female Education in India by Sarah Adams and Charlotte Hardwick.
In this presentation, we will aim to explore whether social norms in India prevent girls from receiving a proper education. We will explore 4 key themes and delve into different aspects of these themes. First, we will look into the impact that globalization has had on the education system in India, and whether this has had an impact on gender differences within education. Then, we will look at the family culture in India and look into aspects such as arranged marriage and caring for family members, and the effect this has on girls' education. Next, we will look into female empowerment and whether this has an effect on whether girls receive an education or not. Finally, we will explore sanitation and the effect that access to clean toilets and feminine hygiene products has on a girl's education. According to Singh, Bazal, and Garg, in 2013, education has been turned into a business prospect due to globalization. More and more higher education institutions are becoming privatized, which ultimately makes receiving an education more and more expensive. Due to this privatization of education, social exclusion is becoming more prevalent. The expensive nature of education means it's increasingly difficult for lower-income families to obtain an education. This may mean that parents have to choose which of their children they send to school. This may explain why low-income families are more likely to send their sons to school and not their daughters. Anand did further research into the impact that globalization has on the education sector in India in 2015. He found that globalization has put extra pressure on the education system to create winners that will go on and lead successful lives and give back to the economy. He also found that due to Western influence in India, there's been an increased demand for people to learn the English language. Monga et al. In 2016 agrees with Singh et al. That globalization has created more exclusion due to its effects on the education sector. He also stated that globalization has paved the way for second and third rung education providers to swamp the education sector. Monga et al. In 2016 goes on to say that this could cause social stratification and lead to younger generations becoming alienated from their culture and traditions. In terms of social exclusion, he argues that globalization widens the gap between classes in India, what he calls the haves and have-nots. According to White, Ruther, and Khan in 2016, gender inequalities within education may stem from cultural attitudes regarding girls' education, along with parents choosing to send their sons to school over their daughters. They also found differences in the enrollment rates between boys and girls. They found that while girls had lower enrollment rates than boys, far more girls drop out of school. They also found that girls in rural areas are at greater risk of school withdrawal than those in urban areas. This is due to the cultural attitudes to what girls should be doing to help the family, such as helping with housework and or caring for younger siblings. This has meant that many girls do not enter the education system, or they leave it once they get to an age where they can start helping around the house. Girls are also more likely to not engage with schoolwork outside of school due to a number of different factors. Firstly, the cultural aspects of girls being expected to take part in housework and other household duties would take time away from engaging with schoolwork. The lack of parental interest in their daughters will have an effect on whether or not she succeeds in school, as parental interest must match that of the child in order for the child to succeed. If the parents don't think it's important enough, then the child will not either. There is also the burden of school expenses. If parents can't afford school supplies to aid their daughter's school experience, then girls won't engage with work as much compared to girls who have supplies and books. Finally, there is also a lack of female teachers in India, which will ultimately affect how girls succeed in school. Although there has been a decrease in arranged marriages in India over recent years, there is still a lot of work that needs to be done before it's completely ended. According to UNICEF in 2019, 1 in 4 arranged marriages occur while the bride is under the age of 18, with most arranged marriages occurring with women over the age of 20. However, due to some of those occurring while the bride is under 18, this will ultimately disrupt her schooling. Girls in rural areas are at greater risk of being part of an arranged marriage, which coincides with uneducated girls also being at greater risk as well, as girls in rural areas are less likely to receive an education due to costs and distance from the nearest school. Furthermore, 1/3 of the world's child brides live in India, with 102 million being married before the age of 15. Child brides are also at a greater risk of teen pregnancy, which would further impact their schooling.
There are many definitions for the term empowerment in both analytic and operational terms. Narayan, 2002, generalizes empowerment as an individual's capacity to gain power and control over decisions and resources that affect their life. Duffalo, 2012, describes the limitations towards women empowerment as starting before birth due to social norms of gender equality. For example, in West Bengal, India, Beeman et al. 2012 study showed 32% of parents wanted their adolescent son to graduate secondary school, and only 18% wanted the same for their daughters. Duffalo, 2012, continues to point out that gender equality, which has the potential to lead to woman empowerment, ultimately resulting in economic development for women. However, he also states that alongside traditional social norms, a vicious cycle of fewer opportunities for women within the labour market, which most certainly contribute to their unequal treatment in the household. Furthermore, there are various obstacles in the way in regards to providing adequate education for girls in India. In order to encourage women empowerment, for example, sanitation, or lack of, can have a profound impact on a girl's education. The Millennium Development Goals echoed a call from the international policy community to broaden access to education and to focus on the gender gap in enrolment that is unmistakable among adolescents. However, Adukie, 2017, points out the lack of lavatories have especially profound impact on pubescent girls, which may negatively impact their educational outcomes. As Bird Thistle, 2011, points out, one common problem within secondary schools are the stigmas and threats associated with menstruation, resulting in the absence of private sanitation facilities, ultimately leaving the young woman open to bullying, harassment, violence, and mistreatment. Nonetheless, it could be argued that basic facilities that are situated outside the home, commonly in poor settlements, can cause increased anxiety and decrease in a girl's confidence, resulting in an absence of pursuing an education. Nilari, 2015, explains that children tend to be shielded from topics such as female menstruation through rules set by the parents and communities, which ultimately deprives both genders from developing the ability to build a social relationship and understanding of sanitation spaces. So when a woman's body functions which force her to use sanitary facilities to carry out extremely private functions, they have to deal with the stigma causing fear and humiliation. These perceptions and stereotypes, internalized and reinforce the code of behavior set caused by generations of caregivers that controlled the access to these sanitary spaces outside the home. Such stereotypes lead women to rarely leave the home, discouraging them from pursuing an education.
In conclusion, it can be argued that globalization has had both a positive effect and negative effect on the education system in India. While the education system has become more and more privatized over recent years, it can ultimately lead to new career prospects for future generations of students. However, as mentioned previously, lower income families are more likely to send their sons to school when they cannot afford to send all of their children. This means that there are girls in India that are not receiving an education due to costs of said education rising due to globalization. Furthermore, the family culture in India is also responsible for girls missing out on their education due to duties at home. White, Ruther, and Kahn stated that girls are more likely to drop out of school due to family commitments, while boys are less likely to do so. They also argued that female students in rural areas are more at risk of being tied down to household duties due to there not being access to many schools due to distance. As shown in data collected by UNICEF, child marriages are on the decline in India, but they have not been completely eradicated. This demonstrates that in some areas, young girls are still at risk of being placed into an arranged marriage and missing out on her education because of it. Furthermore, due to teen pregnancy being more prevalent in arranged marriages, this can also prevent access to education if it was not blocked already.
It could be argued that without adequate sanitation in schools and homes, achievement of woman empowerment is almost impossible. For example, Nalari 2015 concludes that a number of restrictions are present when a young girl enters adolescence, which limit their capability to achieve independence due to the generations of forming social norms that women are homemakers. The lack of sanitation facilities, especially in poor settlements, further compromises their current and future lives by depriving young girls of an education and self-confidence, risking their mental, physical, and emotional health, reinforcing and maintaining their gendered exclusion. Perhaps if these obstacles were overcome and solutions were made, then Duffalo's 2012 argument regarding the vicious cycle of fewer labour market opportunities for females in India due to existing behaviour settings and social norms, which could possibly result in development in a female presence in the Indian economy, could potentially open up more opportunities in education system for women. However, the sanitary needs, which are affected by years of stereotyping and social normality within the communities, needs to be examined to provide new innovative activities and policies which can potentially give girls the same chance as their male counterparts. Nirali 2015 suggests that perhaps gender-sensitive toilets would be a first step into changing the social norms and stigmas surrounding adolescent girls. Thank you for listening to our presentation.